I overheard my wife whispering to her sister, "He has such a huge Johnson. I've gifted him my buns." I remember the day everything spiraled as if it happened this morning. The first sign that my marriage was doomed began with an innocent, almost casual comment my wife, Clarice, made in our apartment's modest living room. She was 27, I was 30, and we'd been married for 4 years. I still harbored the naive belief that we had a solid foundation. Me with my successful jewelry business run alongside my brothers, and she with her cherished cafe. The cracks in our union revealed themselves in a single sentence. "There's a new guy who comes to the cafe," she said, "and he's super interesting." I heard it in her tone, a certain thrill, that hush of excitement she rarely used except when she was talking about her favorite romance novels. The detail she shared. His name was Ivan. He was from Serbia, tall, blonde, and apparently unbelievably charming. It stabbed at my sense of security, but at the time, I tried to brush it off as something harmless. "Interesting, huh?" I said, leaning back on the couch. "You see so many people at that shop. What makes him stand out?" Clara's eyes brightened. "He's like a character from one of those books I read. Brooding, mysterious, but also surprisingly sweet. You know, he even reads Western novels. He told me he's searching for a better life in the United States." She paused, her cheeks coloring. "He has this accent. I don't know. It's just so unique." I try to keep my face neutral, though an unexpected, uncomfortable knot formed in my stomach. "That's nice. Always good to have a well-paying customer, I guess." The conversation drifted elsewhere, but I remained uneasy. Over the next few days, Clarice's musings about Ivan became near constant. She'd come home, eyes shining, rattling off tidbits about his day, his thoughts on the American workforce, his abiding love of Tolstoy or Tolkien. Part of me felt silly for feeling jealous. Clarice was allowed to be friendly, and I wasn't exactly the world's most sentimental husband. I'd always been pragmatic, and if I'm honest, controlling if anything. She usually complained that I didn't give her enough compliments, that I was too wrapped up in the jewelry business to notice her new hairstyle or the pastry she tested for her shop. So it's not like I was the best spouse, but I sure wasn't ready for what was to come. About 3 weeks after she first mentioned Ivan, I popped by her cafe unannounced. It was late afternoon, and the place had the usual crowd of college students reading novels or folks on laptops, searching for free Wi-Fi. I looked around and spotted Clarice behind the counter wearing her flower-dusted apron. She was all smiles, so I stepped up, intending to surprise her with a small bouquet of tulips I'd picked up from a stall nearby, my attempt at being thoughtful. Right as I was about to call her name, the door swung open behind me. I felt a presence pass by, a man with broad shoulders and neatly styled blonde hair. My skin tingled with that inexplicable sense of rivalry that sometimes hits when another male enters a space. I glanced sideways, and the man shot me a cursory look before focusing on Clarice. His eyes lit up. "Clarice," he said, accent unmistakably Eastern European. "You forgot your phone in the back room, I think." Then he held up her cell phone. She smiled widely. "Oh my God. Thank you, Ivan. I was looking for that. I owe you. You lifesaver." The warmth in her voice was obvious. My gut clenched. Laying a hand on the counter, I clear my throat. "Hey, honey." She spun and appeared startled to see me. "Oh, hey. You didn't mention you were dropping by." Ivan hovered by the corner, an amused half smile on his face. I offered my own attempt at a friendly nod, but I could already feel tension in the air. Clarice gestured between us. "Ivan, this is my husband. He helps me with some of the rent here and, all that. And babe, this is Ivan, the customer I was talking about." "So you're Ivan," I said. "Heard a lot about you." He extended a hand. "It's a pleasure to meet you. Your wife is very nice. She makes me best cappuccino in all of city." I forced a short laugh and shook his hand, but as I did, something about his nonchalant expression fell off, like he was quietly studying me, deciding if I was competition. When I stepped back, Clarice reached across the counter and touched my arm. "I'm kind of busy right now, but thanks for the flowers." She gave me a quick peck on the cheek, and I was dismissed. That evening, while we cooked dinner, I asked her more about Ivan. She shrugged, telling me that he was just a friendly guy, that I had no reason to be suspicious. When I admitted I felt a bit uneasy, her reaction was swift. "Don't be ridiculous," she snapped. "I get to have friends, especially ones who actually like reading as much as I do. Just because we share intellectual interests doesn't mean there's anything else going on." I didn't press it further, but something told me there was more to the story. Less than a week later, I sat at home alone, flipping mindlessly through a sports channel, waiting for Clarice to return from the cafe. She normally closed up by 7 p.m., and it was already 9 o'clock. My phone had no missed calls, no texts. At 9:15, she came bounding in, face flushed from the cool night air, her hair a bit mussed. "You're late," I said flatly, standing up from the couch. She rolled her eyes, tossing her purse onto the table. "I know, sorry. The cafe had a busy day. Plus, I was showing Ivan around. He's still new to town, so we decided to grab a slice of pizza you wouldn't believe. He's never had a proper New York-style slice. So we walked a bit, chatted about our favorite books. And you went out with him alone?" I let the statement hang in the air. She lifted a brow. "Don't start. I already know where your mind's going, and you're dead wrong. He's a friend, and for what he told me, he might be gay for all we know. He never explicitly said it, but he dropped enough hints about not being into women. So get that suspicious look off your face." I let out a harsh breath. The notion that he was gay seemed a little too convenient. "It's after 9, Clarice. You could have at least messaged me, told me you'd be late." Seriously, she shot back, grabbing a bottle of water from the fridge. "You never check in with me when you get stuck at the jewelry store. Sometimes until midnight. But I do one spontaneous thing with a friend. And you act like I'm cheating. Get over yourself. I'm not your property." Anger flared in me. "I never said you were my property, but you can't pretend this doesn't look suspicious." I snapped. "You told me he was new in town. You read books together. That's fine, but it's crossing a line. When you're out alone with him for hours, not telling me, and you come back looking like you've had the time of your life." She puffed out a laugh, almost mocking. "Oh, sure, because heaven forbid I actually enjoy myself talking about novels you barely even glance at. I'm sorry if reading is nerdy to you, but I have a right to talk to people who share my passion. At least he listens when I discuss stories. You get that glazed look in your eye every time I bring up books, like I'm speaking another language." I ran a hand down my face. "Do not twist this into me not supporting your hobbies. I've always been proud you opened a cafe. My voice caught. I don't trust this guy, gay or not. Something about him sets off alarm bells." "Well, that's a you problem," she said coldly. "You can't control who I'm friends with. And I'm not going to stop seeing someone who's literally the only intellectual buddy I have right now." Then she stormed down the hallway, slamming the bedroom door behind her. I spent that night pacing in the living room, rage building in my chest. I wasn't proud of how controlling I felt, but I couldn't shake the sense that she was lying. This story about Ivan possibly being gay, it smelled like a half-baked excuse to keep me off her trail. A few days later, I decided to confront her directly. I'd stopped by the cafe earlier that day and caught a glimpse of them sitting at a table, heads bent close, an intimate hush in their voices. The second Clarice saw me, she jumped up, all flustered, claiming they were discussing a new reading club. She wanted to start. Yvonne had barely looked up from his phone, flashing me a thin smile. That night at home, I set aside the takeout boxes and turned to her. "We need to talk," I said firmly. She eyed me warily. About Ivan." She clicked her tongue again. "Yes, again. I saw how close you two were today. Don't try to spin some nonsense about him being a reading buddy. You've been spending way too much time alone with him, and you come home with that goofy grin on your face. What do you expect me to think?" Her face hardened. "I expect you to trust me. I'm your wife, not your hostage. I can have coffee, conversation, or read with whoever I want. If you hate reading so much, that's on you. Don't you dare blame me for finding some company. I'm not blaming you for having a friend," I growled. "I'm blaming you for lying." She scoffed. "What lies?" I said, "From day one. He's just a kind soul who loves books. And guess what? He's polite, respectful, and he compliments me on the everything I've wanted from you for months. But all you do is bury yourself in the family jewelry biz. The last time you said something kind about me was what? On our anniversary last year? Don't turn this into that." I snapped, though a pang of guilt tugged inside me. "Fine, maybe I haven't been showering you with compliments, but that doesn't justify you're my what?" She challenged, crossing her arms. "Am I cheating? Because that's what you're about to say, right? That I must be a cheater if I like talking to a man about my favorite authors?" I shot her a glare. "What am I supposed to think when I see him draping his arm around you? Were you two locked in some private conversation about God knows what? Don't treat me like a fool." She leaned forward, voice trembling with anger. "You want me to promise I won't see him again? Is that it? Are you that controlling?" "Yes," I said flatly. "That's exactly what I want. Stop seeing him outside of the cafe. If he comes by and orders a latte, that's one thing. But none of these little pizza outings, museum trips, or reading circles alone. You want to start a reading club? Do it at the cafe with other people. This sneaking off is done." Her jaw tightened. I saw tears welling in her eyes, but she was too furious to cry. "You think you can snap your fingers and tell me who to be friends with? God, you're such a bully. Sometimes it's not enough that I run a cafe, that you partly fund, I have to bow to your every whim. 2. I forced myself to keep my voice steady, though my chest was pounding. Call it bullying if you want, but I'm your husband, and you owe me honesty. Either you cut off these private outings with him, or I swear, Clarice, we're gonna have bigger problems than you think. Her expression shifted from rage to grim acceptance. She eyed me, then finally said in a hollow tone, fine, you win. I won't see him again. Not outside the cafe. Happy. I sighed, relief and tension mixing. Yes, I said. That's all I'm asking. She brushed past me and marched into the bedroom, slamming the door. I stood there exhaling, feeling more like a dictator than a spouse. But I told myself it was necessary because something about Ivan felt wrong. Days passed. Clarice was noticeably colder, but she seemed to follow my decree. No more late nights. No more weekend museum trips. She insisted they were canceled. She did mention once that he still comes by the cafe, but only to grab coffee. I tried to appear calm, but my mind stayed restless. Then came the day I randomly swung by the cafe to drop off a promotional flyer for my jewelry store. The plan was to set a small stack at the register, part of a cross-promotion I discussed with my brothers. As I approached, I noticed Clarice wasn't behind the counter. One of her employees, Maria, gave me a polite nod and said Clarice had stepped out. For a moment, a flicker of suspicion took root in my gut. I decided to wait. Minutes later, I saw them through the big glass window, Clarice and Ivan strolling up the sidewalk, their arms interlocked. Worse, they were laughing together, looking like the picture of a couple in love. My heart seized. I moved aside so they wouldn't immediately see me. They walked in, Clarice's face glowing until her gaze landed on mine. A flash of sheer panic stretched across her features. Her arms slipped from Ivan's in an instant. Hey, she said, forcing a smile. Ivan gave me that same thin lip grin. Hello again, he said, his accent making the words sound almost mocking. I felt a cold sweat break across my brow. She'd promised not to do this. Yet here she was, arms linked with the very man she swore she'd stop seeing. Without a word, I grabbed her arm. Come on, I said tersely. We're going home. She tried to protest. But I have a business to, I said. We're going home. I barked, ignoring the wide-eyed stares from the cafe patrons. Ivan started to speak, but I whirled around, pinning him with a vicious glare. Get away from her, or I swear you'll regret it. I might have looked insane, and maybe I was, but that's how furious I felt. A hushed wave fell over the cafe. Some regulars stared, uncertain if they should intervene. Ivan just pursed his lips and stepped back, red-faced. Clarice tossed her apron aside. Fine, she snapped. You want to humiliate me in front of my own customers? Let's go. I practically dragged her to the car. The drive home was suffocating. Neither of us said a word. The tension crackled. My knuckles whitened on the steering wheel while Clarice stared out the window, arms folded tight. Once inside the apartment, I turned to face her, chest heaving. What the hell was that? You promised you wouldn't meet him outside the cafe. Update 3, I turned to face her, chest heaving. What the hell was that? You promised you wouldn't meet him outside of the cafe, and now I find you walking arm in arm, practically glued to him. She flung her purse onto the couch. Maybe because you keep stifling me. I told you, we're just friends. He told me he's not into women, that he only flirts because it's his nature. That's it. Why can't you trust me? Because you keep lying. I roared. You said you'd stop. You said no more sneaking around. Sneaking around? I literally walked down the main street with him. That's not sneaking. Genius. If I wanted to hide it, I'd pick a deserted alley or something. I scoffed. Don't be sarcastic. You promised you'd cut it off. She jabbed a finger toward my chest, eyes blazing. No, I said, I wouldn't see him outside the cafe. But you can't forbid him from walking me back if he wants a cappuccino. It's a free country. Last I checked. Stop trying to control every step I take. My fist clenched and I had to fight the urge to punch a wall. Stop spinning it. I literally saw you linking arms with him. That's not just a coworker walking you. That's romantic body language. You think I'm blind? She let out a bitter laugh. He linked arms with me. I didn't see the big deal in the moment, all right? Besides, I told you you might be gay. Gay men do that all the time with female friends, and it doesn't mean anything. I ran both hands over my face, exasperated. I can't do this. You keep feeding me the same line. Either you think I'm an idiot or you're in denial. Which is it? She trembled with anger. I can't believe this. All my life, I've wanted someone who respected my love for books and conversation. Now that I find a friend who shares those interests, you turn into some barbaric control freak. If you truly cared, you'd try reading with me sometimes, instead of making me feel lonely. But no, you just want to cage me in. Maybe I needed an escape. You ever think of that? A wave of guilt surged, but my anger overshadowed it. Clarice, I might not be perfect, but I'm not going to stand by and watch you cheat. That's the bottom line. So it stops completely, or we're done. She stared at me for a moment, tears welling up. Then, with a brittle laugh, she wiped her eyes. We're already done, in case you didn't notice. She hissed, you're not a husband anymore. You're some dictator. I'm sick of it. Without another word, she stomped to the bedroom, slamming the door so hard one of the picture frames on the wall rattled. I stood there, heart pounding, unsure whether to follow her or storm out. Eventually, I chose the couch, drowning in a swirl of hatred jealousy, and an unshakable sense of betrayal. In the following days, Clarice claimed she would avoid Ivan entirely. She insisted I get it. I'll draw boundaries. He can come to the cafe, but I won't let him walk me anywhere. Each time she said that, my trust chipped away. It felt like a bandage on a gaping wound. I knew in my gut something else was going on. Her eyes were distant, and every time her phone pinged with a message, she'd rush to read it, turning the screen away from me. One night, curiosity overcame me as she slept. I slipped her phone from under her pillow, heart thumping in my throat. Her WhatsApp had a pinned conversation with I. My worst suspicions confirmed. I opened it. Messages soared up the screen in a flurry of digital heartbreak. Ivan 2, 12 p.m. I miss you, baby. Today was so much fun. Your husband suspect anything? Clarice 2, 15 p.m. He's losing his mind. I had a promise I'd avoid you. God, I hate lying to him, but I hate how controlling he's become. 2:20 p.m. He is fool. Yes, we keep going. Let him be in the dark. As I scrolled further, my pulse hammered. Their messages weren't just friendly. They talked about stolen kisses, secret trysts after closing time at the cafe. How thrilling it felt to keep me, the jealous bully, clueless. There were references to hooking up in the back office, and I felt physically ill seeing Clarice's giggling responses. This is so wrong, but you're right. It's exciting. He's turning into a total villain, so I don't even feel guilty. I nearly crush her phone in my grip. My eyes scanned the conversation with growing horror. They described intimate moments in detail, mocking me for suspecting but not having proof. She mentioned how she occasionally told me Ivan was gay to keep me off her back. He found it hilarious. My hands shook as I exported the chat to a text file, emailing it to myself. And I scrolled through her photos. Several pictures of them arms around each other, smiling in front of different city landmarks. Stuff she never mentioned visiting. She'd obviously blocked me from seeing them on social media because I had no clue. I took screenshots of each, sending them as well. Once finished, I wiped the evidence off her phone and replaced it quietly on the nightstand. That entire night, I couldn't sleep. My mind raced with fury at how brazen they were to find out she'd used the "maybe he's gay" line so effortlessly made me sick. I felt like the biggest fool on earth. She was living an entirely separate life, treating me like a controlling villain while she rolled around with a cunning manipulator who knew exactly how to exploit her craving for compliments. And yet, ironically, I was more determined than ever to reveal the truth, to punish them both. If that made me the villain, so be it. The next morning, I confronted Clarice. She was rummaging through the kitchen cabinets when I walked in, face stony. I didn't even wait for a polite hello. Stop. I snapped. I know everything. She turned, blinking. Everything about what? Drop the act. I read your messages with Ivan. My voice cracked with anger. The photos, the filthy details. All of it. Her cheeks blanched. For a split second, she seemed genuinely terrified. Then her face hardened, and she slammed a cabinet shut. You went through my phone? You bet your ass I did. I found out how you've been lying, hooking up with him after hours, mocking me every step of the way, telling him I'm some controlling jerk. A step closer, eyes blazing. So guess what? We're done. For a moment, her lip quivered, tears pooling. Then her temper flared. You had no right to snoop. That's an invasion of privacy. I allowed a harsh laugh. That's your response? Not an apology, not denial. Just whining that I found out the truth illegally. Give me a break. She trembled with fury. You want a confession? Fine. Yes, I've been with him. But maybe if you had bothered to be a good husband, someone who appreciated my interests, this wouldn't have happened. You become so obsessed with controlling me, calling me a liar every time I talk to another human being, that you push me away. Don't you dare shift blame onto me. I roared. I might not be a perfect spouse, but I sure as hell never deserve to be lied to like this. You literally told him in your messages that it felt so wrong, but exciting. That's on you, Clarice. She flinched, a flicker of shame crossing her features. You know what? Believe whatever you want. She spat. You're the reason I needed to escape in the first place. My blood pounded in my ears. Escape? That's the word you use. I gave you everything, helped pay the cafe's rent, try to be supportive. Yet I guess I wasn't supportive enough of your hobby, right? So you found the first sweet talker who gave you big compliments about your books, and you jumped into bed with him. Unbelievable. She shook her head, tears finally rolling down her cheeks. Fine, it's done. You can have your meltdown. But know this. The reason we reached this point is because you never gave a damn about what I love. All you care about is your business, your money, and making me fall in line. I can't breathe with you around. I exhaled, shoulders trembling. Then breathe somewhere else. Get your things and get out of my house. I'm filing for divorce. True to my word, I contacted a divorce lawyer within hours. That same day, Clarice left in a storm of tears.